story of Adam and Eve that we heard in the first reading is really the story of every one of us. We are human beings like Adam and Eve. And God created Adam and Eve to be happy, and he gave them everything that they needed in the garden of paradise. But he forbid them to do just one thing, and they did it, and they sinned. And that's when all of our troubles began. In the Old Testament, it says that they interpreted sin like being missing the mark. For example, with a bow and arrow or throwing a bowling ball, you try to hit a bullseye or a strike. And sometimes we miss, sometimes we fail. As human beings like Adam and Eve, we sin, and we acknowledge that at the beginning of every Mass, that we are sinners. We don't like acknowledging that, really, because it makes us feel badly about ourselves. But God looks upon us with love and mercy, just like he looked upon Adam and Eve with love and mercy. And he promised to send a Savior when they had lost that relationship with God. And then in such a marvelous way, he created the Blessed Virgin Mary, sinless from the first moment of her conception. That's what we celebrate today in this feast, that Mary was conceived without sin. And to prepare her to be the mother of his Son, God wanted to have a very worthy vessel. And so Mary is sinless, and she's remained that way. Mary was totally committed to God. When God created us and Mary, he took a gamble because he gave us free will. And that means that we can say no to him. We can reject him, we can turn away from him, we can fail to love him. We can try to do our own thing rather than God's because we think we know better. That's what we call sin. And at the same time, God continues to love us. And through Mary, conceived without sin, he brings his Son into the world through her. And so it's a great feast for us today. The Immaculate Conception reminds us that God cares for us so much that he created this beautiful woman to be the mother of his Son, who would come into the world and be our Savior. At every Mass, I'm conscious of the fact that the Blessed Mother stands next to me. She was at the foot of the cross. At every Mass, we are at Calvary, where Jesus shed his body and blood to forgive us. And from that cross, Jesus said to Mary, "Woman, behold your Son." And there with her was St. John the Apostle, whom Jesus loved very much, and he said to him, "Behold your mother." At those few words, "Behold your Son" and "Behold your mother," Jesus was creating a whole new family, the family of God, that he wanted to live in love. John was entrusted to care for Mary. Mary was asked to be the mother of us all, and she accepted that. When God asked her to be the mother of his Son, she said, "I belong to the Father, and so I will do whatever he asks of me." You and I are called to do the same thing, to do whatever the Father asks of us, because that is loving God in return. It's always a challenge because we are weak human beings. But when we fail, we're so conscious of the fact that God's mercy is so great, and we should never be afraid to come to him for forgiveness. So today's feast is a joyful one in Advent, when we recall God's special call of the Blessed Mother to be the mother of his Son. And he calls us in a very special way to love him. And so sin is a failure to love God and others. We ask the Lord, through the intercession of our Blessed Mother, to help us to love as she did. And may he grant us the same type of faith, hope, and love that Mary had.